Wait, there's something very weak coming through.
They got that big record deal, and now they're, pulling up in limos, and they're not pulling the amps out of the back seat. They got a turbulence and all that jazz, and it's like, oh, you're not as edgy.
So what you're saying is Star Wars is now the Metallica of sci-fi.
Oh, yeah.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, fellow Galactic listeners. I'm Todd Hoffman, and this is WSTR Galactic Public Access, a Star Wars podcast. Welcome to episode 59. Today, we're going to talk about the recent announcements with Game of Thrones creators writing and producing Star Wars films. Joining me in the discussion today is Mr. Aaron Julian.
Hello.
Welcome, my friend.
It's good to be back.
Yes, exactly. Once again, check us out on the social media at WSTR Media. All one word, all lowercase. All right, moving on to our main topic of the evening.
And now for our feature presentation.
So let's start with the press release. So February 6th, 2018, came from StarWars.com, and they said Game of Thrones creators David Benioff and D.B. Weiss are going to write and produce a new series of Star Wars films. So it says David Benioff and D.B. Weiss are going from Winterfell to Galaxy Far, Far Away. It was announced today that Benioff and Weiss, creators of the smash hit Emmy Award-winning television series Game of Thrones, will write and produce a new series of Star Wars films. These new films will be separate and from both the episodic Skywalker saga and the recently announced trilogy being developed by Rian Johnson, writer-director of Star Wars The Last Jedi. David and Dan are some of the best storytellers working today, said Kathleen Kennedy, president of Lucasfilm. Their command of complex characters, depth of the story, and richness of mythology will break new ground and boldly push Star Wars in new ways I find incredibly exciting, end quote. In the summer of 1977, we traveled to a galaxy far, far away, and we've been dreaming of it ever since, Benioff and Weiss said in a joint statement. We are honored by the opportunity, a little terrified by the responsibility, and so excited to get started as soon as the final season of Game of Thrones is complete. No release dates have been set for these new films. There have thankfully been no sightings of White Walkers around Lucasfilm. So there you have it. That's the press release. So Aaron, what are your overall thoughts on this?
I'm just trying to run through the, run through the abacus in my mind and be like, okay, how many Star Wars films are we up to now? How many are coming?
Yeah.
Boy, howdy, there's a lot.
Yeah. It's like we had 6 films, but that took a little bit from 77 to 2005. So it took a little bit, but now we're getting to the point, we're 4 in and we got at least one more on the horizon that we know of, but actually 2. So there you go. Then we'll have 6 because we have Han Solo coming up May and then episode 9. And then we'll have 6 films in what is it? What is it? 6 years maybe?
Just about, maybe right? 7. Yeah. And there's rumors of an Obi-Wan side film.
Side film? Sideshow film?
Yeah, spin-off. And there might be more in between the main trilogy chapter films,
Well, we have the Rian Johnson 3 and this one they say, again, it says we'll write and produce a new series of Star Wars films. So it's definitely more than one.
Yeah.
But they didn't say, and Ryan, they said trilogy. Okay. So maybe it's 2, maybe it's 3, maybe it's 4. I don't know, man.
Maybe it's 8. Who knows?
9. They're going to do another 9 films, So what are your thoughts about this? What do you think, man?
I feel like we're finally getting our wish, and we need to be more careful of what we wished for. because I mean, you've lived it more than I have as far as like the Star Wars drought, and just like, oh man, this Star Wars is amazing, and I wish there was more movies, and now we're getting them like every year, and it's becoming franchised. It's like, can Star Wars really remain the same when we have so much quantity? Like, is it really quality over quantity that we're getting? And even with just like the Solo movie coming out, we've got the first like little teaser trailer. Like the footage looks good, but
it looks sweet, right?
But like I said, I think it was last week or the week before. It's like, well, with the kind of bankroll that Disney has, it better look good. But like, is the story actually going to be any good? And maybe it's easier to pull off with Solo, but when we still got episode 9 that we have no idea how that's going to turn out. And it's just so hard to speculate, like, okay, is the Rian Johnson trilogy going to be any good? Well, maybe they'll have planned it out in advance ahead of time, unlike this one. And maybe it will be good, but what if it isn't?
Right,
and then we've got, the Game of Thrones trilogy or series or whatever it turns out to be. And it's like,
duology or whatever you want to.
Yeah. And it's like, are we going to, like, how soon until we get really tired of Star Wars? And I think some people have hit that threshold already where it's like, all right, too much. Stop, slow it down. Come on. And maybe it's just maybe it's like the Simpsons, where it's been running for like 30 years and there's always like new quote unquote Simpsons coming out, but it's like, all right, it's okay, but it's not that great. It's still around somehow, but okay. I feel like that's kind of where Star Wars is headed with pumping out films every year. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, we always talked about like, well, if it was just like Game of Thrones. So now they got the guys that did Game of Thrones, and I think it's pretty amazing. I think it's a pretty great move on their part, because again, but we've talked about this before. But it's, TV's in a real magic space right now. It's flipped. We're not doing these half-hour sitcoms that are 20 minutes of laugh tracks. You know what I'm saying? Now we got heavy, deep storytelling, deep character-driven series, and now with Netflix and Hulu and all these other streaming services, like dumping a whole season on you, and you could just binge watch. You're like, give me more. And we're in a weird entertainment space in general too, because I was just talking to my buddy Mike about this. It's like movies were events, when I was growing up, it's like you didn't even know the movie was coming out until you went to the movies and saw the preview. You're like, whoa, they're making Jurassic Park. You're like, you didn't even know. Now the trailer's an event. And just to take, like, if we look at May, we got Infinity War, then we got Deadpool 2, then we got Han Solo. I mean, that's like 3 weeks out of the 4 weeks of May that these are huge events, and they're all going to be pretty good movies, I would guess. But it's like, you don't even have time to rest, and it's like, oh, now we got to go to the next one, and you lose a little bit of that when back in the day, I'm putting on my old man card, is like, that's why I saw Empire like 5 times. Well, I mean, it was 5 at the time, but like when you went to the movies, you went and saw it again and again, because there was these huge gaps in like these, mega blockbuster movies. There wasn't as many. And now you're getting that in the movies. And then you're also getting like these great series. You're like, I don't even know what to grab now, because it's so good and it's like almost too much, right. So I'm going to circle back around to say, like, when is it too much to have too much Star Wars? I don't know. It's like, it's a weird space, man.
I think it goes back to what you said about movies being an event. Like, once upon a time, you if you liked movies, you'd go to the theater every weekend and just like see what was playing. And now it's like we've got so many movies that are just like thrown at us all the time. It's become a media of convenience where it's just like, oh, I'll get around to it. Just like, if it's any good, like if the critics like it, like whatever, I'll get to it eventually. And so I've got a list on my phone that's like, that's like 70 entries long of movies that I need to see. And it's like, I'm never going to get to them. And
I know.
You got to pick and choose and think like, okay, what's really important for me to see? And I feel like Star Wars is almost going to become that, where it's just like, where it's kind of like a James Bond movie where, I saw that one, but I didn't see this one. It's mostly okay. But I just feel like I'm going to wake up one day and be like 4 Star Wars movies behind, and you can't just like hop in anymore because it's like all built on each other. And it's like, there's that problem. Because then the only people watching your Star Wars movies are going to be either young kids who don't care about the plot anyway, or people who have just been in it for the long haul. And it's like, where does it end? Nobody knows.
No one knows. No one knows.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it goes back to, it goes back to your burger joint analogy, like, hey, we got this, local dive bar, and then they get bought out and they get mass produced, and it's just loses that edge a little bit, or the indie rocker band. Yeah. It's the indie rocker band that like, oh, we love them. They got tight set and all that jazz, and they got a little edge to them. And then they got that big record deal, and now they're, pulling up in limos, and they're not pulling the amps out of the back seat, they got a tour bus and all that jazz. And it's like, oh, you're not as edgy.
So what you're saying is Star Wars is now the Metallica of sci-fi.
Oh, yeah. You're absolutely right. Yeah. I mean, they're the ones selling mixtapes, and then they go, then they grab their suing Napster people and all that jazz,
It's like they get to do cool stuff, like have a concert in Antarctica, but it's like,
exactly.
Does anybody really care? I'm giving Star Wars a hard time. It's a Star Wars podcast. We love Star Wars. That's why we care about it so much, and that's why we criticize stuff like this. So
well,
don't misunderstand me. Yeah,
right. And I technically, I think we came on a good time because there's a lot of Star Wars stuff going on. So but it goes back to that age old question, like, who owns Star Wars? Well, Disney does, and the people don't. And I think that's kind of like where that rage monster from The Last Jedi came from. It's like, oh man. So back to our Game of Thrones guys. All right. So I had to see what's these guys' backgrounds, So I already like one of them because Weiss was born and raised in Chicago, Illinois.
Hey, he's a local.
Hey, that guy. And I think it's Benioff. I don't know. Benioff.
Okay.
I don't know. Dude. He was born David Friedman. So he changed his name because you could do that in Hollywood. You change your name.
Oh, sure. Sure.
Yeah. So he was born in New York. So we got a New York guy.
Do you think they have fights about pizza?
I'm sure there's been a debate about pizza. Yeah.
Because if I was show running something with a guy from New York, that's probably all we talk about.
Be like, get that floppy triangle piece of whatever you call call that pizza here. That's not pizza, man. I'll give you a deep dish.
Pizza in the form of a cake.
A cheesecake.
Yeah, that's what you need.
Oh man. So Weiss went to Dublin in 95 to study Anglo-Irish literature. Of course. Why not? And that's where he met David. And he was the screenwriter for Troy. That's kind of one of his first claims of fame. Okay. And
were they shooting in Dublin?
I guess they were. Yeah. That sounds like Greece, right? Troy.
You can make any place look like any place else if you're careful enough.
Right. Hey, Canada, they make like, Toronto, they make look like any movie set, so. So 3 years later, after they were in Dublin for a little bit, they met again in Santa Monica, California around 98. And then that's basically where they kind of, they pitched the idea about, they both like Game of Thrones, and they pitched the idea to HBO, and it took a little bit, but they greenlighted, and then they've been uber famous ever since. So not a lot of Benioff had some, like I said, he did Troy and a couple other screenplays, but nothing like super major. But they just kept on pushing for it, and HBO greenlit it, and it's been good ever since.
Yeah.
So one of the things that's been floating out there, obviously, is the KOTOR, Knights of the Old Republic.
That's for our listeners, straight way to my heart.
So for one of the reasons why that's kind of out there is because it is a complex story, has a bunch of characters, and it could adapt very well, both from I was thinking maybe TV series, but these guys are definitely doing movies. But KOTOR came out way back in 2003. It's like so long ago, and to be exact, it was set 3,956 years before New Hope.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it covers the Old Republic, and just kind of the infancy of, just a different space of where, Jedi were and where the galaxy was at. And yeah, it used, a D20 system from Wizard of the Coast, and a lot of turn-based, a lot of fun, and either you get to be a light. That's the one thing about that KOTOR was awesome, is like you could play the story as light, or you could then choose dark, and it would be a totally different avenue. And it spawned a sequel, Knights of the Old Republic 2: The Sith Lords.
So good,
but that was developed by a different studio. That was developed by I don't know. Is that even around? Obsidian? Is that
Obsidian? They're around.
Yeah, they're still around, right? Yeah. So kind of updated the engine, but that came out in 2004. Yeah. So
yeah, it's an oldie but a goodie.
It's an oldie but a goodie. So what? I mean, that's the thing. Like, would you want them to do something that's already established like that, like KOTOR?
Yes, please. I mean, so each of these games, Knights of the Old Republic and Knights of the Old Republic 2, they're like 40 hours of gameplay each.
Okay.
There's ton of characters. Yeah. Ton of characters, ton of different plot lines, and it was one of the earlier games that is just like completely story driven, and the kind of like dialogue choices that you make in the game could really affect the outcome in the ending. And it's also one of the first games to have a morality system where if you do a bunch of good light side decisions, then that's going to accumulate, and you'll be able to do certain things and not be able to do other things later in the game.
Yeah.
And it actually change your appearance. So if you go like further and further to the dark side, you start to look like Palpatine, like all gray.
Yeah,
and like
you get like bags under your eyes, and you get like dark circles. Yeah.
So yeah, it was pretty sweet. That's not something you could do in kind of like a lean back media, like a TV series or a movie, but just the amount of lore and history that's in the Old Republic era specifically, I think would be perfect for adapting to a series of movies. And and these Game of Thrones showrunners have demonstrated that they can in fact pull this off and take something as complex as A Song of Ice and Fire and bring it to the screen in a way that people actually relate to and care about all the characters, which is no easy feat.
Yeah. No, it's not. And, I think the one thing too is that Game of Thrones is like this, and The Walking Dead is like this, is where it's already established story, but they tweak it just enough where it doesn't completely go off the rails, where it's upsetting fans of the books, but it's enough to keep them coming back for more, and obviously bringing in the casual audience, like I've never read the comics or I've never read the books, but they enjoy the show. And I think you can pull that off again in Knights of the Old Republic. Like, if everyone, like K2SU, you haven't seen HK47, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. But like
meatbags.
The casual fan, meatbags, the casual fan would like, oh, it's Star Wars. And it's set up in earlier times, I'm cool with it. But somebody that's a gamer and played the game would be like, okay, I'm in, because that's something that is near to dear, to a lot of Star Wars gamers' hearts, is the old Knights of the Old Republic.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see it either way. I mean, I'm good. Because again, you want. The reason that they picked them is, again, they're able to do a lot of character development, which was kind of a rub for some people, like how everything was handled, in these last couple of movies. But you have them doing that, as well as providing, exciting stories. You're doing both character and really pushing the story forward. And, I think they could do it. I think they got the chops, So obviously, a movie set is different from a TV set, but again, they're doing some big things in the Game of Thrones series, and they have the support. It's not like, that's the other thing. Like, now that the one thing that is good about doing multiple movies, they got it's a system now. It's like, it's like some of there's certain people that are changing, obviously, but they understand, Lucasfilm is understanding like how to make this happen. I mean, one's in pre-production, post-production, in production all at the same time, and they got a lot of moving pieces, but they know how to make these movies. And I'm okay with it, as long as like the quality doesn't leave us. Once the quality leaves us, that's the big question. It's like, I mean, I honestly, I want them, to be exciting, and I want to be invested in it. But once that quality, where it's like, wait, did we just try to pull this, like, when the animation doesn't look as good as even what's on TV, you're like, wait a minute, did they just pull this off in like 1 week?
Yeah,
that's where, my friend, that's the question. Like, when the quality suffers, that's when you're like, maybe they need to take a pause.
Yeah,
there's so many different mediums too. That's the other thing. I mean, they have, TV, comics, books, and, movies are just one part of it. But
where's our TV show?
It's coming.
I mean, we've got Rebels, but it's like, man, well, Disney has so many resources. I just want a live action TV show. Is that too much?
You're like, that's all I want. You want a young,
but it'd be nice.
You want a young Luke Skywalker, like a young Indiana Jones.
I think we've had enough of young Luke Skywalker for one lifetime.
But he could be hanging out at Tosche Station the whole time. It'd be fun,
I can't wait. Put it on the Disney Channel, why don't you?
Right.
Luke's high school days.
High school days. It's kind of like a WB kind of type thing,
Yeah.
Him hanging out at Los Espa or Anchorhead, and just like,
getting into trouble with Biggs.
Get in trouble, busted womp rats with their T16,
Yeah, I think we could pass on that. Thank you very much.
Disney, that's our pitch. You heard it here first. You want a TV series? Luke Skywalker, man.
Mm-hmm.
honestly, man, wouldn't it be like another TV series do like an alternate, timeline or something where it's like, what happens if Luke didn't blow up the Death Star or something,
Potentially interesting, but
yeah,
I feel like unless they have like a lot to say, I feel like it's kind of like a gimmick that could turn pretty stale pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's true. No, you just it doesn't. It'd be interesting. Anything with like a TV series, like you just need a world that's not part of the main, hero saga, and have. I mean, there's so much. It's so big. You could just have a tight story about that and how they interact with the bigger pieces, and having every once in a while a nice little cameo. But I mean, again, we're at a weird spot where like you can't just have Luke Skywalker show up anymore.
Yeah, he's got to bring a whole, like class of '96 with him.
right, exactly, and that's what I'm saying. It's like we're at the spot where you could tell those stories, but you could just name drop and everybody like, what, so.
One of my hopes for this new series.
Yeah.
Rian Johnson can do whatever he wants, whatever. But
okay.
I hope with this series, at least, that they step away from the Skywalker soap opera and just give us something new. Like,
yeah, no, it's
Galaxy's a big place.
Yeah, that's confirmed. That's confirmed for sure. It's not going to, because again, they're saying this will be separate from both the episodic Skywalker saga, which basically means episode 9, and the recently announced trilogy being developed by Rian Johnson.
Okay.
So it's totally new and fresh. We're just saying,
how are they going to market this? Like, what do they refer to it as?
That's true. I don't know, man.
I don't know. They seem to be defying all categories for it.
Yeah. Well,
what do you even do with that?
Right. I mean, it's a whole nother thing. Like a Star Wars story are episodic, off the beaten path, But then if these are new trilogies, how do you market that? I don't know.
Yeah. I think Disney's got a PR problem to solve in that respect.
Yeah. Well, and it doesn't help that even though that's one of the beauties, and that's different from the other brother, Star Trek, where you have all timelines and different things going on, and it's not always the same thing. Star Wars is linear. It's one timeline, and they'll continue with that, which is great. But how do you tell the audience this is a different pocket? Like, oh, we're here. We talked about that before. Like, people got confused with like Jin and Rey. Like, wait, it's a girl. They're different, but they're not. Now, okay, Rogue One is like 3.9.
Yeah,
to episode 4. So it will be challenging. But again, if they're bringing in these audiences and the general public, I think they'll just have to post like a nice little like storyboard infographic, just like, okay, here.
Yeah. I mean, well, I guess they're even doing that with like Marvel, because they've got so many movies to keep track of, and it's like, oh, which came first? Do I watch it in release order, or is there some other kind of order? And it's like phases, what? And so they've got like production calendars where it's like, okay, here's what's coming out this year, and it's like you got Black Panther, you've got the new Avengers one, Infinity War, and it's like, okay, you got to keep track of all that. But then they've got like Netflix shows like Jessica Jones or whatever, and it's like Daredevil.
Luke Cage, and
so like, you almost do need a chart to like keep track of all this. It's like, which streaming services do I subscribe to get all of this? And it's like, it's okay, it's work. It's like, this should be a journey of discovery, not like a day planner where you're like, okay, I gotta schedule all my movie viewing habits,
Yeah. Well, I mean, but here's a like a thing. Do some of the casual fans even care?
Well, it depends on what you mean by casual fan.
Well, I'm just saying, like, the average, I don't know how to put it. Like, it's kind of like, oh, it's Marvel, it's a superhero movie, I'm going to go see it. But they might not understand, like, oh, this is part of, Black Panther's Phase 4. Like, I don't know about Phase 4. Like,
they may not be like all read up on the comics.
Yeah. Well, you don't have to, They make it that way. They don't.
Yeah, that's true.
You don't have to. I mean, some of there are some very, like, even, do you see Spider-Man Homecoming?
I did not, but just from the marketing material, I kind of got the gist of what it was about. Yeah, well, but there's like a ton of Easter eggs. Like, you have to look for them, but they're all very comic. Like, if you're a comic book guy or girl, there's a ton in there. We're like, whoa! Like, there's this one shot where it's like a straight up, visually a straight up cover of one of the older Spider-Man comics. Like, you're like, whoa! But like, again, a casual Marvel fan, oh, that's a cool scene, But like, somebody that's got about every Spider-Man comic since 1960, you're like, dude, that's cover number 331, first appearance of whatever, I do remember they did something like that with the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies.
Yes.
I forget which one it was, maybe 3, but there's like this shot where he's like throwing away the Spider-Man outfit, and it's like
in the garbage can.
Yeah. And he's walking away from it, and it's like, that's straight up from one of the covers.
Right, exactly. So,
but it's not it just plot important information that you have to read the comic books to have. It's just like a little tip of the hat here and there.
Little tip, right? And exactly, that's. It's the same thing in the Star Wars universe. And like, if you right now, the way they have it is like the books and the comics and the video games supplement the main cinematic universe. If you know about those other things, it enriches what you see on the screen.
But it's not required.
It's not required. Like, I could tell you, like, in The Last Jedi, when Luke goes into his little hut for the first time and he's kind of he's folding his robes, there's a compass there. And that compass was in Star Wars Battlefront 2.
Oh.
So it's a little nod to if you played that video game. But again, people doesn't need to, don't even, and the same thing with like Rogue One, there's Rebels references in there that might, Chopper's in there, and they throw out a couple names there, and like people don't realize like, oh, that's Rebels, So yeah, again, the way Disney is designing it is just, it could be, it should be for both. That's what they're trying. Honestly, that's what you're trying to do, is like, I want to keep the fanboys and fangirls happy, but I want to bring the casual people along. And how they market these new films is going to be a little bit, I think, of a challenge, because especially, where they sit, it's like, oh no, this is 4,000 years before New Hope even happened. Like, you can't even wrap your mind around that. Like, wait, what? Oh, okay, yeah, I got it.
Mm-hmm.
So it should be interesting how they do that.
I hope they can pull it off, because I don't want to live the next 10 years just like hating Star Wars.
No,
I'd love to love Star Wars and to keep doing that and be like, yes, these movies are great.
Right. Or defending Star Wars.
Yeah, I don't want to have to turn to an apologist for Star Wars. Like, no, wait, really, it is that good.
It's good.
Yeah.
Which I feel, for whatever reason, that's what happened with The Last Jedi. Like, it's like There's no happy medium. It was like yes or no,
Yeah,
so
that's the trouble with a polarizing film like that.
Well, but I think that's also the day and age we're in. I don't know.
You gotta join a side. You gotta be a part of the tribe for or against us or them. It's like,
right.
Stop it. Stop that right now.
Right. I think too, like for anybody that is passionate about something such as Star Wars, I mean, you have to be critical of it, but at the same time, it's a fantasy and it's enjoyable. And if you find enjoyment of that, no one should rob you of that. And I think that's kind of what transpired with The Last Jedi. So hopefully that will change and maybe Han Solo will win everyone back, So I have a question for you, Aaron.
Yes.
Would you want to see an R-rated Star Wars film?
Tentatively, yes.
Okay.
I guess it goes back to that question of like, what is Star Wars? And if we go back to like, kind of like hero's journey, space fantasy, it's like, will the R rating necessarily detract from that? Because if it's meant to be kind of a throwback to the old like 1940s like, was it Buck Rogers serials?
And
it's like if it's a throwback to that,
Flash
maybe
Gordon, Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers, and
it's like, would an R rating diminish the spirit of that? It might. I don't know, but is Star Wars big enough to accommodate that? At this point, probably yes. So I don't really know, but it would be interesting to see.
I would say no, just because of where the idea of where George said, this is for like 12-year-old boys and girls like growing up and becoming an adult, and there's big themes in there, and I think it kind of goes back to like, I look at Revenge of the Sith, like, again, that was like PG-13, right?
Yeah.
And, Anakin turns bad and goes to the Jedi Temple, and you see him enter where Yoda was training his little bear clan there, and there's kids in there, and he ignites the lightsaber, right?
Yeah.
And that's all you saw. But your mind fills in the gaps.
It's still gut-wrenching.
It's still gut-wrenching. And obviously with John Williams' score and, the visuals and all that kind of stuff plays into it, your mind can fill in the gaps, I think you're right. There's because people have grown up in this material, and there are a lot of people that are adults, obviously, that grew up in either the original trilogy or now even the prequel trilogy. It's like they're there where there's maturity in there where like, yeah, that would be cool. But, if I'm thinking of like my son, I mean, he's only 5. I'm not going to, this is Star Wars, but, you can't see this because this is rated R. I don't know if that's
tough.
And it's not that Disney can't produce a rated R film. I just don't think that's not where it's going to happen cinematically. Now, it would be interesting. Like, I would love to see it like a mature novel or a comic book or something like that, where you could, but I think there's creative ways to tell a story and tell meaningful story, but still keep it like PG-13,
Yeah.
I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at, like you could take like, just take like every lightsaber battle and everyone's getting like dismembered and there's like cauterized blood and you could do it, and
well, I'm thinking of what was that spin-off comic that Marvel did? It's like Deadpool kills the Marvel universe or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's extremely gory and it's not for kids, and it's pretty much plastered on the cover like, this is not for kids. And
right.
It'd be tough to do when Star Wars has the reputation now of being a family-friendly franchise.
Yes.
Say that 5 times fast. And
family friendly franchise.
Yeah. So it'd be really tough to do. It's because I would say do it in like a spin-off film, but as soon as you've got Star Wars on the name, it's like you can't really pass it off as something for the adults, you know? So
or,
maybe they'd have to do it
again,
without the Star Wars name.
Again, going towards like a TV series, maybe that's something, an avenue you could do. But then again, it's like, does Disney want that on their streaming service? Like, oh, this is for Star Wars, but it's adult only, you know?
Yeah, probably not. I mean, Star Wars is like one of their most major intellectual properties now. So I feel like they'd be very cautious to attempt something like that. And
right.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe if they just like glut us full of Star Wars movies and then like the ratings start to sink, it's like, oh, we got to spice it up a little bit. And here's your R-rated one.
Right. Well, I mean, again, they're crafting that all right with Marvel, though. I mean, they have mature stuff on, you know, not cinema, like there's not an R. I mean, from Disney,
they've got like The Punisher, which is like extremely violent and not for children at all. And then you've got Captain America.
Exactly.
So,
hey, kids.
Yeah.
Make sure you pick up your trash. You know?
Yeah.
Only you can prevent forest fires, you know? So
yeah.
It's an interesting thing. I mean, I think there is room for it. I just don't know if they would execute that cinematically, you know, in the cinematic universe. So, but yeah, I mean, it's we'll see. I think also what I love about that statement that they said that you know, we're honored by the opportunity and a little terrified by the responsibility. So I think, again, it just shows that these two guys, I think the same could be said about Game of Thrones. I mean, like, you know, George Martin, he kind of writes some thick books, you know? So how do you you know, how you kind of compress that and still have the you know, the material not suffer from that? They've done an excellent job of that. And I think they understand, like, the Star Wars is big, you know, so like respecting that and being a little terrified is a really interesting press release to say, like, hey, yeah, we understand the gravitas of this. And I think that's pretty.
I feel like it's the proper attitude to have.
Yes.
With something that's like 40 years old. And meaningful to so many people.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So any closing thoughts, Aaron, on this whole Game of Thrones announcement?
I guess just tepid excitement where it's like, okay, this has the potential to be very good. And I do want it to be that. But there's a lot of risks too. And sometimes that's where the best art is made.
Yep.
And sometimes we get Blues Brothers 2000. So, yeah.
So I think what you're saying is like, we're all going to be like quasi like thumbs up, but we're not going to totally go in until we see some kind of final product, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, Blues Brothers 2000.
Don't let us down.
Don't let us
down like Blues Brothers 2000.
There you go. All right, I think that's a great way to end that. All right, moving on to the news of the week.
And now, the Star Wars news of the week.
All right, first up, University of Akron, Ohio. Dude, you can get a college credit for watching the films of Star Wars. So,
do they have online
sections
of this course?
No. So the professor, Juan Contreras, basically created a summer class called The Film of Star Wars, and everyone picked up on it. But basically, this class was first taught in the summer of 2016 and has been offered ever since. It's the perfect, he said the perfect moment to get the class going was the summer after Star Wars Force Awakens was released. The popularity of Star Wars making a comeback is what allowed me to get people on board with the idea. So again, it goes back to, Star Wars could be used for a great educational tool for potential storytellers, considering it changed the film industry, but it also grabs from the universal culture repertoire to craft its stories and its heroes, essentially turning into a modern day myth. Yep. So there you go. So if you want to watch Star Wars movies and get a college credit or two, go to University of Akron and you can, we can take that summer course there, Aaron.
There we go. Just might
there
have
we
to
go.
do that. But I do agree with the summary of it as modern myth.
Yes.
One of Lucas's great strengths was building a world, and he drew on so many different archetypes of mythology and religion and culture and all
everything.
That. Is that there's a lot to unpack there, even if the stories and dialogue may not be on point all the time. So, I mean, I think you can make a college course out of that easily.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah.
So it's cool to see that come around. I
know, exactly. We're gonna have our own Jedi temple someday.
There we go.
Right. All right. This is coming. Next one. This is coming from CBR.com, but with all the recent Star Wars Han Solo news, the certain droid, Lando's droid L337, or LEET for those people, is basically saying is built herself from scrap from other droids. So this was kind of coming out from Entertainment Weekly, and there's a bunch of news that kind of dropped from that. But L337 is a self-built droid made from remains of other droids, meaning that she's kind of a Frankenstein monster of highly advanced robots. Glover goes on to say, I think they're both kind of self-made, referring to the droid L337 and Lando, and they get each other in that way. But yeah, her head looks like a top half of a BB-8 droid. Her body is more a little reminiscent of an astromech unit. For example, she's a self-modified droid, John Kasdan said, the writer of Star Wars Han Solo movie. The idea is that she's sort of a mutt, if you will, of various parts of different kinds of droids who has improved upon herself. So there you go. So that's kind of cool. A lot of, we have a lot of manufactured droids in our Star Wars series, so you got astromechs and, C-3PO, kind of models and all kinds of different droids that have been manufactured. But this one's like kind of our first, kind of self-made droid. So that will bring an interesting little flavor to it.
I guess that will throw you for a loop, depending on your philosophy of artificial intelligence and sentient programming and all that. It's like, is this a person now? Are all droids persons? We don't know.
Yeah.
That's probably the closest to a person that you could get besides R2.
That's very interesting. Yeah, well, that's the thing, too. That's such a sci-fi thing. So sci-fi.
Yeah.
It's just one of those, it's kind of a big, topic in like our droids people or, especially if she's self-modifying herself, there's some sense of self, so that kind of brings up a very interesting question. Next up, this kind of dropped, George Lucas directed a part of the Solo movie.
Ooh, scandalous.
Scandalous. So this came out on the Entertainment Weekly news that dropped. So he came by to visit for the first day that we picked up shooting. George and his wife, Melody, came to pay a little set visit, and it made me feel great, Howard said. So he told me, just trust my instincts, and I know he kind of fundamentally feels like, first and foremost, sort of the 12-year-old boys, that yet even he knows it's grown so far beyond that, and the fans have grown with the series in a great, important way. So he didn't offer a whole lot of advice, except you'll get this, So that quick trip, though, turned into more than 5 hours on set, and he was just going to come by and say hi. But then, everything's right there. Cameras are rolling. And he basically told Howard, like, hi, why doesn't Han do just this, and kind of set it up? And yeah, so they're not very specific on what that part was, but George helped Ron out there. So I think that's kind of interesting. It's like, hey, yeah, we fired these guys, Lord and Miller, bye. Howard's on set, and then George just shows up. Things got real, man. So
hi there.
Hi there. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think that's awesome that, that he helped out a little bit, and there was other news too that Harrison Ford actually talked to Alden for a little bit about Han Solo and the character, and gave him some, a little like coaching, Harrison Ford pulled like, I care,
Yeah.
He was like, I care about it, So I think that's kind of interesting, as much of a curmudgeon he is kind of publicly, he still cares about the product. So I think that's, it's like, hey kid, just do what you got to do,
Yeah.
And finally, this just dropped today. Blu-ray coming out for The Last Jedi. So digital release will be March 13th, and then The Last Jedi Blu-ray will be out March 27th.
I might pre-order that.
Dude, it's got 12 deleted scenes.
12 deleted scenes?
What? What are we going to do? I think we have to watch them all, and then I think we'll have to do an episode about it, because I think
we should.
There's
also going to be there's also going to be an hour-long like making of documentary about it.
Oh, I love those. I just eat those up. Eat them up. That should be fun.
We can get like 2 episodes out of that.
Right. Well, and I think too, it'd be interesting. Everything with deleted scenes is always interesting, because with The Last Jedi, that was the longest Star Wars film to date, and so now that you have 12 deleted scenes, it's interesting to see, like at what stage, because sometimes the deleted scenes, there's a lot of missing parts, or they're like a completely perfect film ready to go, but they just like too much filler, or too much that slows the pacing of the movie, and there's always some unique twist to it. But yeah, I'm interested. 12, I'm like, whoa, that's a lot. So there you have it. That's the news of the week. All right, moving on to Katina Chat. All right, Aaron, dying to know what's going on with your Moody Bible role playing extravaganza. So
yes.
Where are we at, man? Where are we at?
So I couldn't be there this past week. So I had other happenings going on, but I was
right.
I got a brief about what they did. So
okay.
Last time we left off, we were. Did I share about us escaping from the stormtroopers? I think I did.
Yes.
So
yeah,
forgive
that's
me
where
if
we left off, man.
Yeah. But when we were being held up by the stormtroopers?
Yes.
So I did participate for this bit of it. A fight ensued. One of our party members almost got arrested, but she ended up breaking free and shooting one of the stormtroopers. I went out from the second floor apartment to the balcony, saw what they were doing. There's a group of stormtroopers and a enforcer droid like K2SO with them.
Okay.
And I took aim at the enforcer droid and just shot him straight in the head, and he fell over. And so
Right.
he fell over dead, or as dead as droids can be. That's more philosophy for you. But non-operational. And long story short, we managed to shoot the rest of the stormtroopers, and before backup could arrive, we grabbed the droid and just took off with him. It took like 3 of us to carry him, but we got him because we needed a new droid body for our dearly departed droid friend. And so we took off. We managed to get almost all the way to the ship when a little alien dude comes running up to me, the same guy that I intimidated earlier, and he's like, "I know what you've been up to, and I'm gonna tell the authorities unless you pay the right price." And he tries to extort me for 500 credits. I tried to intimidate him, but it didn't work. Yeah. He's got his hand on the communicator, and I'm like, "All right, here you go." So I give him 500 credits. He starts running off, but the soldier in our party is watching this from a distance, and the little alien goes running past him, and he just kicks it as hard as he can, like right up against the wall, knocks him out cold, and gets the money back. So,
oh man,
yeah. So I don't lose my money. I'm a happy dude. And long story short, we get our droid's head onto the body of the droid that we captured, and he's good as new. We get all the information that we need about the Imperial presence in the city and the garrison or the blockade outside Tatooine, and we end up communicating to Princess Leia that, okay, we can go and move in on Jabba's palace whenever we're ready.
Yeah.
And it turns out we catch a broadcast of basically covering our shenanigans.
Nice.
Yeah. Nobody knows who we are or who did it. We got away with it. But the guy that we visited to collect the money from, who was whacked out on spice. Yeah. It turns out that he's the wrong guy. The real guy we were after is his brother. And
boy.
But it's the spice addict who got arrested because his brother is a spice dealer, and his hidden stash was in the backyard where he was digging. So
of course,
my little bluff turned out to be true.
True. All true.
Yes.
All of it.
So that was 2 weeks ago, and then this past week, which I couldn't be there for, basically they moved to Jabba's palace. My character is basically like scouting the place for them. They go in, the palace is just empty, cleared out. And
what?
Yeah.
No Jabba?
No Jabba, no nothing.
Oh, man.
And so some Tusken Raiders sneak up behind me and knock me out.
Oh, no.
And steal me away. So they've got to come rescue me. But
awesome.
Yeah, the Tusken Raiders attacked Jabba's palace and drove them out. So now we got to go find Han.
Oh, there you go.
Yep.
That's awesome.
One last thing about that Star Wars group is we found a website called Hero Forge.
Okay.
You can make your own custom little D&D miniatures. And they've got they've got different genres. They've got Western, sci-fi.
Internet.
Yeah. And then you can order them. It's like $30 for like high quality plastic, and they'll 3D print them and send it to you. So we're looking into that.
Take my money.
Take my money. But I did manage to, if you pay $10, you get just the digital file. So that if you have your own 3D printer, or like the library has one, you could print it there. And I managed to get that file working with a game called Tabletop Simulator, where just like it sounds like, you can play your own tabletop games. And
you told us about that before.
You can import your own custom models, and I got it working in there. So that's something we might do to help facilitate the different encounters that we have, is to just do it virtually on screen and if somebody brings a laptop, runs it on there, and we have our own little dudes there.
So nerdy. I love it.
Yeah,
so
it's awesome.
Nerdy.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's awesome. It's great, man. Well, I watched Rogue One and Force Awakens this weekend. So, and I have a Sphero BB-8 unit. So it's like the one that you control with your phone, and it's pretty cool.
Nice.
So yeah, Sphero just came out with like an R2 unit that looks pretty cool as well. But I have the trusty, BB-8 unit, and it does a bunch of different stuff. But one of the new things that they've added was like he can interact while you watch the movie. So
interesting.
You plug him up. Yeah, you plug him up, put him on his base, and sure enough, he's watching the movie, and he interacts with like he'll make a bunch of different sounds and move around during different parts of the movie, and it was highly entertaining.
Wow!
So like when Kylo showed up, it's like when Kylo kind of showed up, he's like, no, he kind of does like a no thing, and when he was, does the lighter thing with Finn, he kind of lights up, and it's just. It was pretty fun. It was pretty fun. Yeah. Like I was like, okay, what is he going to do next? And, some of the sounds that he does are like straight up, it replicates what is on screen, but there's other ones where at different times he does different things. And you're just like, oh, that's awesome. Like when, like even at the beginning of Force Awakens where like Finn and Poe get shot, he kind of panics. He's like, oh no. So it was kind of interesting in a fun way to kind of re-experience the film. And little BB-8 was giving us a little entertainment. So that was.
So it must listen for audio cues within like the movie soundtrack or whatever, and then know what to do. That's really
right.
clever.
Yeah. So you set up the app. It's all in your app on the phone. So you set up and basically say, okay, once you hit play, just hit next, and then it just kind of picks up on the audio cues, and it's very interesting. It's
very cool.
Interesting. So that was my nerdy Star Wars thing for the week.
I dig it.
Dig it. So we're gonna wrap this up, Aaron.
Yeah, sure thing.
All right, man.
Thanks again for listening to another episode of WSTR Podcast. Once again, you can check us out on social media, WSTR Media, all one word, all lowercase. We want to hear from you, so please comment, tweet, rate us on iTunes, or you can email us at wstrpodcast@gmail.com. You could also leave us a voicemail at 630-557-WSTR. That's 630-557-9787. This way you can leave a voicemail and we could play it on an upcoming podcast. You can catch the entire catalog of our back episodes at wstrmedia.libsyn.com. That's LIBSYN.com. Now you know all the ways to get a hold of us. Next week on Solo, the original Space Cowboy. Now this is podcasting. Yay. Another episode in the bag.
In the bag, man. It's done.
We got a big bag of episodes. 59 of them.
Big bag.
60. Episode 0.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah.